Arrows. Arrows. Focus question. What defines the message? The first arrow. Paloma was tossing her new ball high into the Mississippi air when she discovered the first arrow in the forest. On that summer morning, she was aiming for the sun, throwing the ball higher and higher, so when it came down and rolled away, she had only herself to blame. The ball bounced off a tree trunk, flew over a log, and came to rest at the base of a huge boulder. She was digging the ball out from the heavy undergrowth when she noticed the arrow curved into the lower part of the massive rock. Paloma grabbed her ball and raced home. Her grandfather was resting on the porch swing. His eyes were closed, and for a moment she wondered whether she should wake him with the news. "You've discovered not something," she said softly, when she was settled beside him. "I can tell by the way you're fidgeting." "I've found an arrow, Papa." Paloma kicked her feet, and she swing moved back and forth, making a gentle, whizzing, squeaking sound. "And where is that arrow that excites you so much?" Paloma told her grandfather about the bouncing ball, the boulder, and the arrow that was curved near the bottom of it. "Do you think the arrow is a gylf like the ones in my code books?" Paloma asked. "Maybe it's a Mayan hieroglyphic. The Mayans used tiny pictures instead of words and letters. Maybe they carved that arrow," Paloma guessed. Papa pulled himself out of the swing and smiled down at his granddaughter. "That's a very good question," he said. "But I doubt that the Mayans were carving rocks around here. The Mayans lived farther south, in Mexico and Central America. However, your arrow might very well be part of a code of some kind, but he might have to do some research to find out." Paloma's grandfather knew a lot about codes. In fact, he had won a medal for his code work during World War II. Papa and other native code talkers had helped the United States and his allies win the war by sending secret messages in languages that people from other nations could not understand. "Will you tell me again?" "Papa," Paloma pleaded. Paloma loved to hear the story of the code talkers even though she had heard it many times before. She especially liked to hear about the Mississippi code talkers like her grandfather. "Come," her grandfather said, as he took her hand and pulled her from the swing. "I think we should visit the mysterious arrow. I'll tell you about the code talkers while we walk." As they made their way towards the boulder, Papa told Paloma the story of how he and other code talkers sent messages that only other native code talkers could interpret. Questions. "We spoke into walkie-talkie radios," he explained. "There was a code talker on each end, and we would only use Choctaw words that no one else could understand. Someone would give me the message that I was passed on, and I would speak the words in Choctaw. The code talker on the other end would receive my messages and translate it into English for the soldiers. If the enemy was listening on the radio, they wouldn't be able to understand that we were saying." Paloma and her grandfather were at the boulder now. They knelt down, and Paloma pointed to the roughly curved arrow. Wind and rain had eroded and smoothed the arrow's edges so much that Paloma might not have seen it had she not been paying attention. "What do you think it means?" she asked. Papa ran his finger back and forth over the curving. "I'm not sure," he said. "It is a very old curving, but it's hard to determine its age. It takes a lot of work to figure out how old the curving is." "How do people know?" Paloma asked. "Well, there are many ways. Remember the cave paintings we saw last summer, and the old fossils and bones we saw at the Natural History Museum? Scientists use a method called carbon dating to figure out how old those things are. Can we use it to tell how old our arrow is?" Paloma asked. "Maybe someone could date the plants in the cracks nearest to the curving, but that might not necessarily tell us how old the curving itself is," Papa told her. "Let's try something else. Let's try studying the arrow as it is." Paloma stared at the arrow for a long time. Suddenly, she had an idea. I know, she shouted. Let's consider where the arrow is pointing. Where the arrow is pointing. The arrow was pointing toward another boulder nearby. Paloma and Papa followed it and found the second arrow almost immediately. The second arrow was pointing in the same direction as the first, so they followed that one too. It led to another boulder and another arrow, which led to yet another and then another arrow. There are 6 arrows in all. I bet there are even more arrows to follow, Papa. Paloma smiled as she ran her finger over the 6th arrow. Well, I think we should look for the next arrow then, Papa laughed. The arrows are sending us somewhere, and I'm very curious to find out there. They continued on in the direction the arrows had been leading them, but saw no more boulders. The arrows led them straight toward the stream. Do you want to cross the stream? Paloma asked. I guess we should. It looked very shallow, so if we tiptoe from stone to stone, perhaps we'll find another arrow on the other side. Hold my hand tight. We'll cross together. Answers. They crossed the stream, holding hands, stepping carefully. When they reached the other side, they almost crashed into the next boulder. It was hidden in a grove of old pine trees. Do you think there's anything curved on it? Papa asked. Let's take a look, Paloma said. They knelt down together, side by side, and examined the boulder. At first, they couldn't find an arrow in any other curving, and they were about to give up when Paloma gasped. I found something! She shouted as she leaned closer to the boulder and scraped off some moss with her fingers. Look, Papa, it's not an arrow at all. A whole bunch of letters are curved into the lower part of the boulder. I wondered if we can make them out, she said. I'm afraid you'll have to read them to me. Papa stood up slowly, rubbing his knees. My eyes are too old to make out tiny letters that have been hidden behind overgrown weeds for such a long time. I'm afraid my knees aren't too good either. Paloma leaned closer to the boulder and studied the letters. It took her a long time, but she was finally able to read them all. They don't make any sense, she said. I'll say them to you, but I don't think they mean anything at all. Paloma read out letters out loud very slowly. G P M M P X U I F E S J O L JOHHPVSE. When she was finished, she said, Maybe they're a code. Do you think they could be a code, Papa? Read them again, Papa said. Maybe I can make some sense of them if you read them again. Paloma said the letters again, and then she repeated them one more time. As she read, she could hear her grandfather's footsteps. She was pacing slowly through the dead leaves and pine needles. Papa always placed when he had something important to think over. Do you mean anything to you? She asked when she was done. Indeed they do. Indeed they do, her grandfather said, still pacing. Indeed they do. What do you think the letters mean? I'm not actually sure, Papa told her, but I think it's a sepia, and I think I recognize it. Paloma knew what a sepia was. It was a code that substituted letters or numbers for the real letters in a message. Ciphers like that one had been used in many wars to keep the enemy from learning about battle plans, Papa explains. Cracking the code. Did you use a zipper in the war? Paloma asked. I saw them used in World War II. The Germans had a very clever machine called the Enigma machine that substituted letters for other letters. The code talkers often use a cipher as well in case a native language speaker was captured and forced to translate messages by the enemy. But the first substitution cipher was invented by Julius Caesar more than 2,000 years ago. This is an example of a Caesar cipher. Can you break the code? NBCM CMUH YRUGJFYIZ UWUYNULWCJBYL. Hint. This zipper shifts each letter in the alphabet forward by the same number of letters. I wonder if these letters were used in a word too, Paloma said. Papa had to think about that. He paced for a very long time, and then he stopped beside his granddaughter and cleared his throat. I think I remember something, he said. As you know, a great war took place right around here. The Civil War, right, Papa? Paloma asked. Yes. Back in 1860s, the Civil War was fought between the North and the South. I think I remember reading that the soldiers and spies in the North used a special zipper. Do you remember what was that, Papa? Or what is that? What it was, Papa? It was sort like the Kaiser zipper. Read me the letters again. Paloma read the letters slowly. G P M M P S U I F E S J O L J O H H P V E S E. You forgot the spaces, he said. Read the letters again and don't forget the spaces between the words. Paloma reads the letters again. This time she was careful to pause wherever she saw a space. G P M M P X U I F E S J O L J O H H P V S E. She was just about to ask her grandfather that the letters meant when she notices something in the zipper that she had seen in coats she had deciphered before. Most sentences contain at least one short common word, and this one was no different. I think I see I see some interesting letters, she said. Let's say the letters from words. One of the words has 3 letters. Let's guess what that is a common word, like and or the Paloma suggested. There has to be one common word in a sentence. Paloma and Papa were quiet for several minutes as they thought about the 3 letters. I don't think it's and, Papa said. The letters don't make sense. But it could be the, Paloma said. Maybe the letters UIF stands for the in some way. Papa was smiling now. You're a very smart girl, she said. What letter comes before U in the alphabet? T, Paloma said. And the letter H comes before I. And the letter E comes before F. This is substitute letter C for Papa. Yes, I remember now. During the Civil War, some Northern spies and soldiers used a code called the advanced cipher. They advanced each letter on one letter to the one letter of the alphabet. The drinking ground, a guard. Once they had cracked the code, it was easy to read the message. Do you know what it says? Paloma asked. I do know what it says. Do you know what it says? I know what it says, Papa. It says follow the drinking gourd. But I don't know what the message means. Do you know what it means? Papa chuckled and sat down on the hollow log. We've made quite a discovery, he said. We have found 6 arrows pointing in the same direction. If people followed the arrows, they would reach this boulder, and they would find this zipper. I wonder if the arrows and the zipper were curved during the Civil War. Papa was pacing again now. The Paloma could tell that he was thinking things over in his mind. Before the end of the war, he said, many enslaved people wanted to escape to the north. They followed that was called the Underground Railroad. It wasn't really a railroad, it was just a series of routes and directions, the safe houses that led the enslaved people northward. Some who had escaped returned to help others. But who curved the arrows, Papa? I'm not sure if we'll ever know that, Papa said. It might have been a northern spy trying to help. It might have been a returning enslaved people who had learned the zipper in the north, or maybe it had nothing to do with the war. Who knows, maybe some children were playing a game. Did escaping enslaved people ever carve directions in trees or rocks? Palomas asked. I've never heard of it happening, but every day people find new information about the Underground Railroad. Just recently, someone discovered a hidden tunnel and a secret room in a house in Loa where people hid out on the way north. A code in song. Here's the first verse of a folk song that gives directions north on the Underground Railroad. When the sun comes back and the first quails call, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd." "What does follow the drinking gourd mean?" Paloma asked. "The drinking gourd is a group of 7 stars now called the Big Dipper, which can always be found in the northern sky of the United States. Enslaved people who were escaping followed the drinking gourd from safe house to safe house, until finally they reached freedom." The sun was beginning to set, and tiny silvers of light were flickering through the branches. Paloma took her flashlight from her backpack, turned it on, and took her grandfather's hand. By the time they were on the other side of the stream, the sun had disappeared. Paloma stopped and studied the sky. "Are you looking for the drinking gourd?" her grandfather asked. "There it is." Paloma was pointing to the bright shape in the sky. "Let's follow it, Papa." "Okay, dear. Are we heading north?" Paloma had to think about that for a minute. The drinking gourd would lead them back across the stream, past the boulder with a zipper, and on to places north. "We need to go west, Papa." Paloma and Papa turned. They moved slowly, comfortable in the early night. The light from Paloma's flashlight led them away from the stream, past the hidden arrows, out of the woods, and home.